Marty here with Warehouse and Operations as a Career. I hope you enjoy our show each week, and we're offering up something you can take away from it, and it helps you in your career somehow or some way. We have a lot of fun sharing our experiences and really enjoy getting to throw in an opinion or two every once in a while. And don't forget about our Facebook and Twitter pages where you can find us using that little @ sign. WHSEANDOPS. Oh, and the Warehouse Equipment Operators Community Group on Facebook. It's a great place for everyone to share their day and thoughts with a like-minded set of individuals. Well, I tell you what, as they say, on with the show, I guess. So let's talk about some of the little things that happen to us as warehousemen and transportation employees on literally a daily basis, and why it's important we always stay focused on our jobs and our positions. I was speaking with someone who had just received a corrective action for a minor incident with a piece of equipment. He was placing a pallet with a counterbalance forklift, and as he was reversing from the pallet, the back of his forklift hit a fire extinguisher that was hanging on an end cap just adjacent from the wall slot that he was working at. The butt of his lift kind of raked the fire extinguisher from its hook, and it fell to the ground. There wasn't any real damage. It did go ahead and discharge, however, making quite a mess and broke the handle off. Now, he did the right thing and reported it immediately to his supervisor. As we've learned, we need to always report any incident, no matter how small it is, immediately. Anyway, his manager understood, and she even helped him sweep up all the powder from the floor and kind of brush it off of the boxes that was around it. I think that's why he was so surprised about an hour later when she called him into the office and counseled him with a written warning. After leaving her office, he was really upset, and using his words, he said he was very confused now. Remember, guys and gals, a written warning is not a bad thing, and there's no reason to really get upset over one. None of us likes to hear that we've done anything wrong, but I've always tried, successfully most of the time, to think of it as a learning experience. If it's something worth writing down on paper, it's probably something that's important. In my experience, most corrective actions are really rooted or based on something we as the employee did. He did hit the fire extinguisher, causing it to discharge. After speaking with him, he agreed and understood. He said he was actually singing while he was backing up and just not paying attention. He kind of laughed that it happened because he worked around that bay something like 20 times a day. I've heard he's turned in 4 or 5 near-miss thoughts recently, so in his case, that little talk accomplished what it was intended to. The employee is working on staying focused and actually noticing things that could rear up as a problem in the future for himself or others. That story reminds me of another associate. He was a pallet sorter. His task is separating the good wood from the broken pallets, responsible for neatly stacking good pallets up in nice stacks for the receivers and selectors, and loading all the broken pallets or bad wood onto a trailer to be sent out for repair. He had showed up on a Friday to work his shift, but had forgotten his steel-toe shoes, and his supervisor, of course, wasn't going to let him go to work. Well, that upset him quite a bit, but he lived fairly close, so he went home and got him and came back to work. After lunch, he went over to his soup, and they're pretty good friends anyway, but he apologized to his boss, telling him that a few minutes earlier, while he was reaching up to drag a pallet off of some bad wood, that it slid down and landed right on the toes of his boots. If he had had his tennis shoes on, it would have smashed his toes big time. Needless to say, he wasn't upset with his boss anymore, at least for the rest of that day. You know, here at WAOC, we talk a lot about rules and why we have them in our industry. I think that's a good example of a valuable rule. 99% of the time, nothing's going to happen until it does. Another quick story, kind of along the same lines. A selector was pulling a case of balsamic vinegar, 4 1 gallons, What it was has nothing to do with the story unless you've smelled balsamic vinegar before. Anyway, she broke one of the glass bottles, dropping the case on her pallet too hard, and it cracked on the bottom. She grabbed it pretty quickly and got it over to the side of the end cap to a trash can, so it didn't leak the whole gallon onto the floor, but it did make, a fairly good-sized mess. She didn't stop to clean it up, and she really meant to tell the sanitation guy, but you know how we all get busy, and she just didn't do it. Well, on her next batch, driving through the same aisle, her pallet jack slid as she was trying to stop, and she ended up hitting an upright and breaking a case of another item. Once again, as an employee, she was really upset when she was written up on a warning report for not, reporting the original spill, and received 2 points on her safety record for hitting the racking and damaging another case with her jack. Rules. Boy, I tell you, rules seem to be that one thing that us as humans constantly have issues with or that we regard as unfair. Of course, they're only unfair when we're the ones that didn't follow them. I had a buddy that just got a ticket for riding in the HOV lane as a single passenger. An HOV lane, which stands for high occupancy vehicle, is a lane that you can drive in if you have 2 or more people in your vehicle. And now, of course, he's really upset with the cost of that ticket. He knew what the lane was, what it was for, and the cost of breaking that particular law or rule, yet he's guilty of ignoring it. On a bit of a heavier note, I know an order selector that was creeping his jack, meaning he was walking along beside it, just reaching over and rolling the throttle forward as he walked it down the aisle because he had several slots in a row to select from. Sure enough, another selector turned into the aisle and bumped the back pallet of his load, moving his jack forward, pinning his ankle in between the rack and his standing platform. If he'd been standing on the platform, riding the jack properly, or following the preferred work methods that he'd been taught, he would have saved himself a lot of pain and the 6 days of lost wages. I don't know what it is about rules and why us as humans struggle with them so often. We know they've been written to avoid something from happening or to ease our lives in some way, but the human nature in us wins out sometimes. Again, 99% of the time, there's no cop there when we make that left-hand turn from the center lane to avoid waiting our turn, or we can jump in the HOV lane, when we're in a hurry, or run that red light so we don't have to wait 2 more minutes on the next one. 99% of the time, nothing happens, but that 1 out of 100 can be expensive or bad, life-altering, or even life-ending. The same holds true in our work lives. I don't know why we get upset when we're clearly, most of the time, admittedly doing something, the wrong way and someone calls us out on it or we receive a corrective action. I hope we always receive the proper training, of course, for our jobs and that the rules, policies, and procedures have been explained to us, and that if we don't understand something or have questions, that we all raise our hands and speak up. I feel that's as much our responsibility as our management teams to make sure we know what to do and how to do it correctly. That being said, though, means that we accept the responsibility to follow those very rules, policies, and procedures, right? I assure you we'll be safer, advance more quickly in our careers, and be much happier employees ourselves. I have the opportunity to visit several companies each week and meet new employees and visit with different management teams. And another little thing that comes up, or what we as employees perceive as a little thing, is those pesky time clocks. It's another one of those tasks that are really our responsibility, but human nature kicks in every once in a while, and there we go again. It's so easy to get distracted when we're arriving to work or on our way to lunch, and it's super easy to forget to punch out at the end of our shifts. A very minor issue to us as employees, but it's honestly a big deal for our employers. First, there's laws and regulations that they have to follow and that they're responsible for recording. You would not believe how long it could take at some companies to get our forgotten punches corrected and taken care of. In many organizations, only a few people can even make adjustments to our times, and really, I guess that's the way that we'd want it. When we punch correctly, we get paid correctly. It's honestly as simple as that. I've seen people get upset and even quit their job because they were missing a few hours or a day's pay while admitting that they forgot to make that punch. I couldn't really blame them for being upset, but the company was trying to get the individual the money as quickly as possible, but it just couldn't happen that Friday. I felt for him, but hey, it starts with us punching in and out. It's going to happen. We're all human. I tell associates to see their supervisor, though, as soon as they realize a punch has been missed so they can start the process to get it corrected for us. One thing that we don't think about sometimes is our weekly payroll has to go in or be processed by Tuesday each week for us to get those checks on Fridays. If our supervisor turns our time in on Monday morning, it's gone and usually sent within 24 hours. That's really just another little thing to us, but wow, what an impact that little rule can have on us as employees, our companies, and in some instances, our families. Well, enough of the little things. I'm sure we all have 100 examples or stories that we could share. I know I've had all these things happen to me before, and I've had my feelings hurt because I was counseled about it. But in the end, I'd like to think that I realized I was the responsible party and that I learned from it. Well, thanks for checking in with us here at WAOC today. Shoot us an email to host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com if you'd like to comment or suggest a topic for us to look into. Until next week, please think safe and let's all take responsibility for the rules.